Don't Worry, Darling. It's a film that came out in 2022. It was a movie that felt like a movie. A real go-to-the-theater film.
You've probably forgotten it. I wanted to.
It was my intention to never see this film, due to how bland the marketing made it seem. But a couple friends of mine invited me for a movie night, and I agreed.
Due to some infamous clips of Harry Styles' acting, we were hoping for it to be hilariously bad, but it ended up just being meh.
Even with everything I'm about to say, I can't bring myself to call this film bad because the film doesn't do anything horrible enough to bring out that much negative emotion in me. If I were to compare the story to a piece of meat, the movie scares are unseasoned and the story's undercooked. So hey, at least it's time accurate. But even if the film itself is mediocre, there's a word that clumps on the back of my brain whenever I think of this film. It's a painful little annoyance called underdevelopment. There are several ideas in this movie that they spend no time exploring the interesting implications of. So, today I want to bring this motion picture out of the recesses of your mind and explain how its twists and themes were underutilized and ruined the movie as a whole.
Since we're getting to the part of the video where I explain the plot of the movie, I decided it'd be fun to make it a game. Let's listen to my friends play and see how well they do. Okay, so I'm going to give you a plot summary based on what the trailers say, and you have to guess what the twist in the movie is. Sounds good?
The film is about a young couple, Alice and Jack. It's the 1950s, and the nuclear kids have found themselves in the perfect post-war dream life. Jack's working at a company developing progressive materials, and Alice is a housewife spending her days doing the cooking and the cleaning, along with hanging out with the girlies. I mean, their friend Margaret lost her kid in the desert after seeing something and is taking meds now, but besides that, it's paradise. But oh no, Alice sees a plane crash outside town, and then crazy stuff starts happening.
It doesn't help that the next day, Margaret decides to quit Minecraft early.
She tries telling Jack and her best friend Bunny about her situation, but they don't seem to believe her. Alice suspects the CEO of Jack's company, Frank, is behind all this. Now, with that basic summary, I want you to guess what's going on.
What's that thinking? They put the wives under it because they want them to be submissive, like traditional.
I'm gonna say that it has something to do with like the thing that they're making. Like I feel like it could be something like potentially science fiction-y.
I think they're in like a matrix of some kind. I think it's like the Matrix, they're like plugged into something.
Well, it looks like two of our contestants got it right.
Got it.
Oh,
They're in a
The
simulation.
Matrix?
Yeah.
The whole time they're in the simulation?
Yeah.
And set in like present day?
Yeah. It's present day. It's just they want that
it's
trad wife house lifestyle.
It's like the village.
Yeah.
Okay.
To be honest, I would do that. I don't know. I'll be honest. Okay, what do you think? Is that a good twist though, compared to Black Mirror? Maybe Black Mirror episode I seen is when the kid or the guy was.
It's such an obvious twist, and the whole film is focused on Alice trying to figure it out. She explores the town, looks into Margaret's disappearance, confronts Jordan Peterson with Riz, but you're sitting there the whole time going, she's probably in the Matrix. We have to ask ourselves, why was this twist used? Don't Worry, Darling advertises itself as a thriller and a political commentary film, with director Olivia Wilde emphasizing the film's themes of power and control over women.
I am so interested in the idea of exploring what it really takes to be a revolutionary and who is really brave enough to question a system that serves us. I think that's something that's very important in today's society.
She wants her film to lead to discussions about how women are treated in modern society and the people who stand by while these injustices happen. Well, how are those themes handled in the film? The reason Alice is trapped inside Victory is because Jack put her there. In the real world,
She was a nurse that had to work overtime due to Jack being jobless, but he wanted her to spend more time at home.
instead of finding a job, he becomes a Redditor and listens to Chris Pine's podcast.
In a list of events that aren't made clear to the audience,
Jack gets invited to Chris Peterson's cult and forces Alice into the program as well. So, does the film talk about the control men want over women? Yes, but in a really basic way. Sexism is bad, and insecure men don't like it when they're out-succeeded by a woman. Congratulations! Any decent person knows that. It's not that discussing sexism is the issue, it's that the film doesn't have any interesting new points to talk about. It just rehashes scenarios that you've seen done better in other media. That leaves the thriller aspect of the film. Does it deliver on the scares? Well... The problem with the horror elements is that the twist doesn't explain why they even happened. Don't Worry Darling's main fear tactic are supernatural occurrences and dream sequences. Here's a list of the major frights in the film. Mysterious earthquakes happen, but it only happens twice in like the first 10 minutes. While cooking breakfast, Alice realizes that the eggs she's using are empty. She gets flashes of dancers during the day. She sees a plane, which looks a lot like the toy Margaret's kid had, crash into the desert. The wall in her house almost crushes her. Alice sees Margaret recreate that scene from Midsummer. There are spooky images on the TV. Alice wraps her head in plastic wrap. Her reflection breaks the fourth wall. Wait, why would it do that? Who's she staring at? In a competently made film, these scares would make sense to what's going on. So tell me, why are most of these not connected to the fact that Alice is in a simulation? The images of the dancers are what Alice is seeing in the real world, and YouTuber AmandaTheJedi theorized that the plastic wrap and plane was Alice trying to subconsciously wake herself up. But the other events are just spooky things that can be assumed as glitches. And while we're on the subject of unanswered questions, the film brings up a lot of mysterious circumstances that it never explains. Like, how come no one is looking for Alice?
The girl was a surgeon. Did none of her coworkers wonder where she went? Did Jack fake an email saying she quit?
What about all the other women? Are they all familyless or something?
In the dinner scene, Alice points out that Chris supplies all the food for the town, but they have no idea where it comes from.
If this is a simulation, why wouldn't he just have the food seem like it was coming from a third-party source, like supply trucks? Most of the scares are Alice seeing weird things, like on her TV, getting stuck in the wall, seeing static. So we're just gonna assume those are glitches, right? Well, that feels lazy. That means it could have been literally any weird thing placed in any order in the movie, and it wouldn't have affected the plot. In the case of Alice's reflection turning on its own, girl didn't even see that. So it was only for the audience. Wow, strange of the Matrix to give us a personal jump scare. What happened to Margaret?
The obvious answer is that she KH'd herself, but Jack implies that women can't die at Victory. So did she just wake up from the simulation? Imagine the awkward conversation with her husband after that.
Actually, while we're on that subject, the men can die in the simulation, but the women can't? Why? Seriously, what was Mirror Alice looking at? Wild jump scared the audience like it was a Paranormal Activity movie. Okay, I gotta admit, this one's kind of a nitpick, but if you really want to talk about incels in your film, why would the guys want to live in the 1950s? You're telling me that not a single one of these guys wants to bring his Xbox into the simulation. Think about it. If you're an incel and you can literally create whatever house you wanted, why wouldn't you make it like the most dorky man cave possible? Like, you're telling me not one of these guys would want to decorate their house like they're in a Phantom Menace video. Once again, if the clues help support the twist, I wouldn't have these questions. But nothing is answered by the end of the film. I really need to stress this. The glitches give the audience no indication that the town is a virtual simulation.
The answer could have been drugs or the government.
And the entire second act wouldn't change. Okay, B, you're probably thinking. Obviously you don't like how the writers executed the twist. Why don't you tell us what would have been a better alternative? And you know what? I will! In my opinion, for the scares to be more effective, they would need to make sense in hindsight due to their connection with Alice's past, how the Victory Project works, and the themes of the movie. A film that does all three of these is Christopher Nolan's The Prestige. Warning, I'm about to spoil the ending of this film. Watch the film blind, it's a great experience. For those who don't care, here's a synopsis. The movie is about two magicians trying to outdo the other in a decade-spanning feud. This mainly has one man, Robert, trying to figure out how the other man, Alfred, performed the teleporting man, a trick where he walks into a closet and reappears in another door on the other side of the room. Robert is obsessed with this trick, calling it the
Greatest magic trick I've ever seen.
For a long series of events, he enlists the help of Nikola Tesla.
Yes, I mean like the real historical figure.
To find the answer to the trick. This leads to Robert opening a new show where Alfred is framed for his death. While in prison, he's visited by Robert saying, "Lol, I'm alive and I may or may not put your daughter in an orphanage." Alfred's naturally mad, but he can't really do anything cause... Or can he? While getting rid of his cloning machine, Robert is shot by Alfred.
In a turn of events,
Alfred Borden was the alias of twin brothers. But that's not all. We find out that the drowned body was actually Robert. When trying to figure out teleportation, Tesla accidentally invented cloning. The film ends on a panning shot, revealing the Roberts that were drowned for the trick to work. There are some surface-level similarities between The Prestige and Don't Worry Darling. Both are period pieces that reveal to have sci-fi elements at the end of the movie. Both twists are commonly used, but the difference is that we're not asking questions about Prestige's sci-fi mechanics because the film told us inadvertently. We see Tesla working on the machine, and the device only has one function, so what's important to the plot is how Robert uses it. The same is done with the twins. Throughout the film, Alfred is described as a man with a mysterious past and a fickle personality, switching his love between different women. The audience just guesses that he doesn't like commitment, but it's actually because the brothers can't express their love without giving away their trick. Furthermore, what's brilliant about these twists is that they perfectly reflect the magician they revolve around and how each performs. If done in a worse movie, I would be complaining about how overused the twin twist is. But in The Prestige, the twist reflects Alfred's tricks. Simple, but used really well. The simpleness is even pointed out by characters like Cutter and Olivia, but Robert, and by extension the audience, believe that there has to be more to the trick. Robert's inability to believe it could be a double is because he is incapable of making illusions that simple. His personality is to create tricks that are showy and otherworldly, and even if an audience member catches on to Borden's secret, the film is entertaining. Figuring out the teleporting man isn't the main conflict. It's only Robert's driving force in the film.
the film's focus is on the twins and Robert's feud.
And how their obsession with sabotaging the other ruins all three of their lives. Well, this is all well and good, B, but The Prestige is a very different film from Don't Worry Darling. The latter wants to say something about society. Okay, let's look at another film that executes their plot twist well. Get Out. In fact, when you look at the story beats in both films, one wonders if the writers took some inspiration from director Jordan Peele. Unlike Wild, Peele wants to make social commentary about race, and how it's viewed by rich, liberal white people. A trend. Not even talking about the film's script, this immediately works in the movie's favor because at the time it was released, this was a fresh group to commentate about. The film's comedic tone adds to when the twist is revealed due to the extreme angle the movie takes. We find out that Chris's girlfriend, Rose, works with her family to steal black people and replace their brains with that of the old elite. The twist turns the old people's jokes from earlier in the film, funny, to foreboding. Don't Worry Darling wants a serious style of commentary, talking about men radicalized by the internet, but you don't know that's what Jack is until right before he's killed. Get Out understands that its twist needs time to be explained and explored, so it has Chris learning the truth and in the basement before the third act starts. We get to learn about the treatment, how it's done, the methods the family uses to get victims,
and explains why the Armitage's staff was acting weird earlier in the film.
Get Out's structure is my personal perfect blueprint for what Don't Worry Darling should have done. And I understand why the writers in Wild missed the mark.
Alpha males is a more modern idea, and Don't Worry Darling needs us to believe that's the 1950s for this twist to work. But in doing the misdirection, the film loses a lot of opportunities to comment on incel culture.
The only guy who displays any modern, unique forms of sexism is Frank with his social commentator speeches. But even then, he just uses regular gaslighting techniques.
And we know so little about the rest of the men in Victory that they don't seem unusual.
All we have to go off of is their devotion to Frank, but that isn't specific to incels. Any authority-based work can have a beloved boss. Comparing the two better films, Prestige and Get Out both have a twist involving sci-fi, but they're not complicated, and they don't need much world building. Their twists are strongly linked to their themes. The Prestige is about obsession. The Alfreds trick the entire world just for their act, and Angler
Babes
himself daily so he can one-up Borden. Get Out is a commentary on race, with the wealthy white people using minorities as a character customizer. Don't Worry Darling is about modern misogyny and how we view the American dream, so it's set in the 1950s for most of the film. Here's a genuine question. How does the time period of Victory help the film? It hides the fact that it's in the modern day, and there's a bunch of nice visual and audio accompaniments. But the fact that it's that far in the past doesn't affect the actions of the characters. Jack never displays the sexism of a 1950s man, insisting that Alice is a housewife, making misogynist comments, and everyone in the town seems surprisingly progressive. B, the men are from modern times. Yeah, and they are like the most politically correct sexist I've ever seen in a film. Wild, you have a character that you've stated was directly inspired by Jordan Peterson, and he doesn't bring up freedom of speech once? How am I supposed to believe that these guys listen to alpha podcasts if they don't make a single joke about the biracial couple? The way I see it, Don't Worry Darling didn't use its runtime to properly give clues or context to its twist. A lot of complaints I've heard about this film is that it feels both too long and too short at the same time. The problem comes from not enough happening in the second act and nothing being explained in the third. This film's second act is such a drag to watch on a second viewing. It wouldn't harm the film to cut out a few scares, and like the whole party scene. The only relevance that it has is that it causes a rift between Bunny and Alice. But nah, we can just info drop at the end. But no time to explain it clearly though. We got a car chase to film. Add some Gaelic chanting to hype things up. Okay, now that I've laid out why I think Don't Worry Darling's twist was poorly executed, let's try to remake this film using the themes of misogyny and privilege to its advantage. As I see it, the director has to choose which is more important to them, the themes of the film or the shock of the twist. For the latter choice, I want the things that are happening to Alice be personal to her old life. Instead of random creepy dancers, how about she sees the lights of the operation room? And her visions could include her house turning into a hospital hallway and doctors performing surgery on her. We could also get more insight into real-world Jack. The distorted voices of him and Alice arguing could be played on the TV. Having these works increase the horror, but also gives insight into Alice's old life. That's what I would do if I wanted to stick as closely to the original film as possible. Personally, I feel like there isn't a lot of good criticism of the American dream and misogyny in film, so I want to explore these themes better.
Wilde wants to talk about women who turn a blind eye to misogyny, but that doesn't work when Alice is the main character.
The only wrong thing she did was not listen to Margaret, but really, why would she? Margaret lost her kid, and she had no reason to doubt Victory at that point. If we want to better explore these themes, we need another protagonist. I believe Bunny, the friend who was in on Victory, or Shelley, Frank's wife, should have been the main character. They are participating in this society due to them benefiting from the system.
I'll use Shelley as the example,
because her relationship with Frank will allow us to focus on the alpha male types, helping to make the film current. In this version, Shelley went into Victory because she wants to be a housewife and is disgusted by modern feminism. She believes the program is what's best for women and works with Frank to make sure the wives conform. With her leading the women, she'll be the main person gaslighting Margaret.
So, when the shaving incident happens,
Shelley starts to question her actions and Victory's effect on these people. The dream sequences and glitches can be the Victory program personifying her guilt and internalized misogyny. I also want to show how incel-type men treat women. So at the start of the film, Shelley believes that her marriage is an equal playing field, but as she starts to question Frank, he becomes verbally aggressive. There's also another commentary opportunity of Shelley and Frank's relationship that Wilde and the writers missed. Shelley is a Chinese woman, and if you looked a little at political commentators online, there's a pattern of these white men having East Asian wives. So much so, in fact, it's kind of a meme. Usually, these men fetishize and or be racist to Asians, then use their spouse as a shield. Let's show Frank doing similar things and have Shelley justify it in her mind. That's the main thing I want to change in this rewrite. I want Shelley to have obvious flaws in her worldview. With Don't Worry Darling's female characters, it almost feels like Wilde's scared to criticize them. Bunny's revealed to have been gaslighting Alice throughout the entire film, and she doesn't confront her about that. It's just like, wham, my kids are dead, leave now. Some accountability would have been nice.
While researching this video, I watched a lot of the clips of Wilde explaining her film. It's interesting to listen because she explores the themes better in these short interviews than the entire 2-hour runtime. She would talk a lot about people who turn a blind eye towards injustice, which is something I didn't notice at all in the film. I think Wilde was too focused on the visuals of the film to the point where it clashed with the script. Like I mentioned before, the time period doesn't affect the characters, and the men don't act sexist enough. And during the marketing, Wilde emphasized the focus on female pleasure in the movie, but that doesn't match her themes. Why would these men who feel insecure about their control over women also be okay with performing pleasure on them?
So, in conclusion, I'm not angry, just disappointed. This could have been a great commentary on conservative expectations of women, but relies too much on its simple, predictable twist.